Hey y'all, and welcome back to Fashion Meets History with Domii. This is the first official episode of 2025. So happy new year to all of you listeners, whoever you may be, a little number or a big number, all are important. Okay, so there has been a lot happening in the news, specifically on these TikTok streets. The themes for today's episode will be following some recent TikTok discourse, obviously surrounding fashion, and how, in my mind, it's sort of the same conversation to me. Let's get into it. First things first, the Walmart Birkin. Obviously, most of us know and are familiar with Hermes, and their two most tokenized and talked about products, which are the Kelly bag, named after Grace Kelly, and the Birkin, named after Jane Birkin. Both of these bags are and have been highly coveted and favored for decades at this point. I think the Kelly bag was in the 60s, I believe. I think it was before Grace Kelly stopped being an actress and moved to Monaco to become the Princess of Monaco. And the Birkin, since probably about the same time period, I did a video about it last year sometime, but basically the story was like the bag was named after and created for Jane Birkin after like some type of conversation, like discourse during a flight. That's like the quick rundown backstory. And so they've been very prominent bags for quite a while. Two things. Number one, also wrapped up in this discourse, which I don't know if like a lot of people saw it or not, but it was on my TikTok For You page. There was a 60 Minutes interview with the head of Hermes, who made the statement that he didn't know what the interviewer was talking about when the interviewer brought up the infamous list in the store for the Birkin bag. He was like, there's no list. They do take a long time to make because they are specially made and custom, but there's no list. Which begs the question of, salespeople either one, being greedy and wanting you to like make this arbitrary number of sales with them so that they can earn commission. And then two, from like a racial landscape, are like the same, like the salespeople and things like that, being racist or discriminatory in any way for people of certain colors, or people of certain socioeconomic background, or what they deem to see as socioeconomic backgrounds. That's one like part of the pot. And then the second part of that pot was that because this bag is so coveted, and in our world, not the head of Hermes' world, but in our world, there is the Birkin bag list. Walmart now has on their online platform the Birkin bag dupe. And the very first thing that I thought about when the whole Birkin dupe happened was Dapper Dan and Gucci. It was the very first thing that popped into my head, because Dapper Dan was ultimately like sued by Gucci and Louis Vuitton. There's a third one. I want to say Chanel, but I'm not sure. I'm blanking on a third one, but definitely like Louis Vuitton and Gucci were like the two main ones, because Dapper Dan had built up the skills to like kind of create or have these certain like fabrics and monograms be crafted, and then he would make the different designs and stuff like that from these fabrics that he was concocting, right? Dapper Dan started making his products in New York, in Harlem, and it wasn't until Dapper Dan really started like gaining some prominence within like Black celebrity culture of the 80s and 90s. You can think like the big puffer sleeve, like
Ian Dixon
jacket. And like when stuff like that started to happen, of course, the higher ups from like Gucci and Louis were like, this man is making too much of a noise. Let's shut the operation down. And then the other part of that particular conversation is the relationship between fashion industry and dupes. there's a invisible line of where something, like one creator, one designer makes something, and I'm using designer like very loose, like low level, make something and it becomes popularized or trendy, and all the other retailers like Fashion Nova, Forever 21, H&M, Zara, they can come and copy that, and that's not considered like copyright infringement. That's like a good dupe, for lack of a better word. It's when like a designer, the designer that makes the original item, gets to a certain threshold and becomes like luxury or couture, that invisible line gets crossed. And the reproduction of some of those items, even though it still follows the same logic, it's still fashionable, it's still trendy, then that becomes copyright infringement. And because of the popularity and the hierarchy of Hermes as a brand and the Birkin bag itself as a product, it brings the question, is the Walmart Birkin ethical? Just like there's a question in the 80s and 90s, is Dapper Dan and all his wonderfulness and excellence being unethical and making these products? That's like a tricky answer. Ultimately, Dapper Dan was sued, but flip side of it, in 2018, Gucci came back and asked for Dapper Dan to be like a part of their team. It begs the question of, it's a problem until you need this creator to bail you out of something, or you need this creator to create something else to be the next thing to, spin the wheels of your profit. Now, to be fair, I don't think that the Dapper Dan situation completely aligns with the Walmart Birkin situation. Mainly because, no offense to like the AliExpress and the DH Gates of the world, we all use them. But when it comes to like those type of companies and that type of business model, that is truly like taking someone's work and legit just like, I'm selling it for a lower price and raking in the money, right? Just like, the bags on Canal Street when you go to New York and stuff like that. There's like, in cases like Dapper Dan and other creatives like Dapper Dan, they are taking something, specifically in Dapper Dan's case, that was just monogrammed or branded with that particular company's logo, and creating something that company had never seen before. So the creativity and the newness of the product was still there. It's just that the brand was not legally his to do with and create how he wanted. And last thing I'll say in this, with the statement I just made about the bags on Canal Street, Telfar also made a statement in the last weeks about how he does not have a problem with seeing his replicas out there on Canal Street or DHgate or AliExpress or Shein or whatever, because he's kind of like, get it where you live. And there's something in me when like hearing that type of statement from a Black creative, a Black designer, where I'm like, innately Black culture is more susceptible to sharing the recipes and being like, there's enough to let everybody shine. Like, Susie on Canal Street can get her coins and pay her rent, because there's always going to be a base that's going to get the real Telfar too. So I'm going to get my coins, they're going to get their coins, we're all going to be happy. And he also takes that as, like, imitation is the best form of flattery. Just food for thought and things to think about. As always, I love to leave the videos with more questions than actually like answering any, because it's a discussion, it's a conversation. Let's get the different viewpoints. But following the train of thought of Black culture, how Black creatives think about how they disperse fashion and culture. It brings us to the Beyonce conversation with the B-Bowl and Cowboy Carter, and the conversation around propaganda, and if similarly to the Dapper Dan and Gucci situation, if it is ethical to be both pro-Black, be proud to be Black and African American, and also, claim simply being an American. And the reason why it relates to fashion to me, or I see it through a fashion lens, is because I was recently doing a video on the Black fashion designer, Patrick Kelly, and his legacy. And in talking about his legacy, I mentioned that one of his hallmarks, Kelly's hallmarks, was creating like his pins and bows and bandanas, like these little small accessories. And they always represented Black culture because he was from Vicksburg, Mississippi. And then no matter if he was, a teenager learning how to sew in Mississippi, or when he moved to Atlanta and started making a name for himself and working with people like Iman, or when he moved to Paris, and actually started his big fashion brands. No, in any place he was at, he always referenced back in a small way or a big way his Black Southern roots, because that was a part of him, no matter what. And he was a gay Black man from the South. So let's just put it out there. I'm sure Mississippi wasn't always good to him, but that didn't matter because he still had pride in it. And so from talking about that in the video, it really clicked for me, the current, discourse about the Beyonce, B-Bowl and Cowboy Carter, and the conversation surrounding, like, can two things be true? Can you be both things? Now, I personally think that you can be both things. I am a Virginia native, born and raised. Some people do not consider us Southern, and we are Southern. We are not like deep Southern, but we are Southern. I am from the Southern part of Virginia, so not the DMV. But I very much consider myself Southern, and also a lover of history. And a big part of American history is the discourse about slavery and the Civil War and Civil Rights Movement. And I find it fascinating. I find a lot of the historical things to be atrocious. What, one group of people can do to another. And I think it is perfectly fine to like call out the atrocities that have happened and are happening right now and that will continue to happen, because that's just human nature. There's no perfect society. A lot of times what I find, especially the older that I get, what I find that I resonate with, and that is one of the major things that I talk about, on my videos, is finding like the Black creativity and uniqueness and smarts and ingenuity and all of the things. The pride that you have in being from any place in the South, or just being a Black American period, a lot of the times is, you're championing all of the legacy people that came before you and all of the things they put out into the world. When we think about HBCUs, that is so much of the pride that HBCU students have in not just their school, but the whole conglomerate of HBCUs, is all of the greatness that came out of it. That's what you're excited about. That's what you take pride in. I know y'all gonna be sick of me, but Howard loves the Howard. I absolutely love being able to say that Felicia Rashad was here and did this, and Chadwick Boseman was here and did this, and Alana Barfield Brown, and Thurgood Marshall, and just so many other people, so many great minds that did great things. That's what we have pride in. It also made me think about the continuing conversation, and I say continuing because to me, it seems like history keeps repeating itself. There's a cycle of this conversation that never really leaves because there's no answer, and I don't know if there is an answer. Smarter minds than me will have to figure that out. But it made me think about the line between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, and the conversation around on W.E.B. Du Bois' side, Gallatin 10th and Black excellence, and that Black people should assimilate into American society and show our equality in that way, that we're equal because we legitimately are equal. We can do all the same things, live up the same things, have the same things that this other group has. And on Booker T. Washington's side, the idea to segregate, build up our own, and have the equality and the equity within our own community, because that's where we're gonna have the power and build the wealth and a multitude of things. And I see that in this conversation. On one hand, the people are saying that it is unethical to celebrate being Black and celebrate being an American. Those are kind of like the Booker T. Washington folks. And the people who are saying you can absolutely be both are on the W.E.B. Du Bois side. And that conversation continues whether you rewind in history or you fast forward. If you rewind, you'll see people like Frederick Douglass who argued for our assimilation as a group of people into American society, because Republicans and abolitionists in that time period, including Abraham Lincoln, until his discourse with Frederick Douglass, believed that we should be shipped back to Liberia, or we needed to be on our own. To Booker T. Washington's point, that's how we would feel better. And Frederick Douglass explained that we're just as much American. Black people fought in the Revolution. Black people have been born here by the 1860s. They don't know another home. If you were going to send them back, that would have been a conversation for 1619, not 1860. These people are homegrown. These are Americans. They deserve to be here, and the onus should be on you as the people, as the American society, to do better and just allow us to be here, because we've been here. We just need to be here equally. And if you fast forward, the conversation is mirrored again in the civil rights movement. You know, Martin Luther King and the mainstream civil rights movement followed the logic of W.E.B. Du Bois. You know, they were nonviolent for a reason. And then there were the Malcolm X's of the movement, and later the Black Panther Party, who were like, no, we have to make our own things. And the reason why I say greater minds than me will unravel that question is because I can see the positive and negatives on both sides. And I think that's a big reason why we're still having the conversation today, and why we don't know if it's ethical or unethical to be both Black and American and identify as both Black and American. Please, comment your thoughts below, and be sure to follow me on social media and on this YouTube channel to get more conversations and more updates as the year continues. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Make sure that you stay tuned for more. Bye.